At 2 hours, like 84% battery. Like, what can go wrong? This bench is an absolute train wreck. Hello everyone, thanks for coming outside with me today. I feel like it's been a while since I've been in front of a camera, or behind a bow for that matter. Life gets kind of hectic for me and my family during the springtime with family get-togethers on the weekends. Of course, COVID doesn't help. And then, of course, you got all the other things like school, work, and then turkey season's coming up here in just the first week of May. But I'm trying to catch up because right now I got 18 different videos that I need to film, and today I'm trying to kill a couple of birds with one stone. Anything you see here with a rectangle on it is a gear review that is either currently happening or needs to be started. But today I would like to do 2 gear reviews, I think, as well as a general question video that I get asked a lot, which is left helical or right helical or straight, offset versus helical. Kind of throw a whole bunch of different things at you, and we're going to be using the guinea pigs of the Sirius FLETCH Crete in conjunction with Toughhead, which I've been using now for a couple of weeks. Been using on my 3D setup, and these current new arrows, which were just released from Sirius, the Supernova 2.0, and they are an actually beautiful shaft, and they are the what I like to call the Joe lunch bucket, the working man's arrow. This is a standard diameter arrow, standard weight arrow, but the high tolerance that you would expect from Sirius, a 1000 straightness and a really good plus or minus grain tolerance, and it's very comparable and competitive to everything else that's priced in this category of specifications on the market. It's about 120 to 130 bucks for a dozen shafts. Now, it's still not cheap, but in comparison to Gold Tip, Victory, Beeman, Easton, all of their offerings of their 1000 standard diameter, standard weight arrows are also 120 to 130, if not even 140, 150 for a dozen shafts. So Sirius is trying to dip their toe into the standard Joe lunch bucket market, and this is where I like to live. I love Sirius's arrows. They make some great stuff with their Apollos and their Vulcans. I'm a huge fan of the Orion for a 166, but this Supernova, even though I just got it just a couple of days ago, I haven't cut them yet, I haven't inserted, I haven't fletched, I haven't done anything to them yet. This is my type of arrow, a 244, 245, 246 diameter arrow with a standard insert, 125 grain point. This is a 300 spine arrow, which is 9.3 grains per inch. It's very comparable to your Gold Tip. It's actually right on par with your Gold Tip and just a little bit less than your Victory, but the Victory cheats because it has that ceramic ice coating, which adds that extra 0.4 grains per inch. So this is my type of arrow. This is the kind of arrow that I expect people to have normal success with. This is the vast majority of arrows that are sold on the market, and particularly in the shop that I work at. So we're going to be kind of nonchalantly building an arrow, and we're also, when we get to the fletching stage, going to talk about fletching left or right. But first, I got to get these cut and start the inserting process. So it's nighttime in my house, around 9 o'clock at night. I really don't want to wake up my 4 and 5-year-old who are currently sleeping upstairs. So I just cut the one arrow, and we're just going to insert it. We'll fletch it, and you would just repeat the process 12 times. You're talking 100 grains. It is a break off like typical ethics style. It has a little bit of a flare to it there on the tip edge. It's a little bit like a Gold Tip in the sense of how it's flared, meaning, you know, this kind of flares up and away, gets a little bit bigger than the outside diameter of the arrow itself. And then the stock insert, if you're a fan of the channel and you've been around a while, this is basically a Carbon Express insert. Now, Carbon Express inserts are machined for a lot of different arrows other than Carbon Express. This one is basically what is used in the Mayhem Hunter, so it actually has a little bit better with the banding and the cross hatching than, say, like the Maxima Blue RZs or the Maxima Reds or the Badlands. Oh, that could have been disastrous. I lit this prematurely here. I would strongly recommend with smaller inserts, Carbon Express or these ones here from Sirius, that you would epoxy these in. I do have the new epoxy that Sirius is selling, a 2-part epoxy. Excellent stuff. Freaking sticks water to a fish and then some. But the problem is that I want to experiment with these arrows a little bit, trying different inserts, trying the Ethics 100 grains and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to use hot melt here, and I'm going to use the stock components. These inserts are easy to get a hold of, and they still work. Lots of arrows are shot through deer that are Carbon Express with these inserts every single year and have been for decades. They still work. I just recommend that you use some sort of epoxy or cyanoacrylate. Using hot melt, you might find, because of the lack of gluing surface, that you just don't get the results you want. It takes, with modern day carbon, a pretty good amount of heat to damage the carbon, although you know, it still can be very lethal in a bad sense. So that's a little bit on the hot side. And that's okay to let this cool down. Now that that glue has now had an opportunity to set in there with that insert, that's okay. I can actually let this cool down a little bit, and I can heat it up again right now, just like this. And then I can push it into the arrow, and that's a good seat there. You want to use a lot of glue when it comes to these style of inserts. It's easier just to get the tip just like that. That's all the more you need. And wipe it off on your finger. I would often wipe it off here into the palm of my hand just to clean up that glue. You don't want any glue, and I mashed a little bit in here. You don't want any glue inside of the threads of that insert there. It gives a nice, I will say Carbon Express style inserts give a really nice flush. That's my biggest complaint with Victory and with Gold Tip. It's that flare at the end. It almost acts like a footer. And getting out of a bag target, like I have a Morel Supreme 3 right here, or any other type of like a Storm target or anything else that's a good style solid bag target with a good solid covering, it hangs up on it so bad. It's so annoying to pull out the arrows, whereas these Carbon Express is such a perfect flush. There's no flare, no cone, no bell to it. It makes it a really nice arrow removal regardless of the style of target. Oh, I also get asked all the time about hot melt, about what kind of hot melt can I use. You can use regular good old style craft sticks. You can use the Gorilla Glue ones. Those will work as well. The key is you want low temperature hot melt. If you get a high temp or a super hot temp or whatever they want to call it, or a high strength glue, that's often a very high temperature, has a very high melting point, and that's not what you want for working with aluminum inserts and carbon arrows. You want a very low temperature, very gooey, very sticky style of hot melt, but it's very flexible, it's very malleable, and this is what you want. You want a bunch of compression resistance with a hot melt glue. You don't want something that's really hard and brittle when it dries. That's the issue with cyanoacrylates or super glues, is that they will get really hard and brittle and they don't have really good impact resistance. This is why fletching glues like Fletch Type Platinum were really common for a very long time, is because they were really gooey like this, almost like a rubber cement, and they had a lot of give to them. So when you passed through an animal or shot an arrow through a target, it would hold that fletching, that feather, that vein onto the shaft a lot better than a really hard cyanoacrylate. Now cyanoacrylates and epoxies have gotten so much better and so more widely used for everything, not just the archery industry, of course, that you can get stuff like FLETCH, which is almost like water. It's not even gel-like at all, and you can get rock solid performance on your inserts and your fletchings as well. So when it comes to fletching left or right helical, this is something that I started to test back in August of 2020, right before the season started. I was getting a lot of questions from people, and I was kind of curious myself, because I've been one of those people that, even though I have videos on arrow clocking, which is taking a bare shaft and seeing which way it spins by itself off of the string without any fletching imparting that spin or that helical onto it, I just don't really care. But I did want to know, like, if accuracy improved. And when I tried both left helical and right helical, my accuracy didn't improve at all. And that's anecdotal. Broadhead flight, though, and forgiveness, that was a little bit different. And I have a video on my channel about forgiveness and how I actually was trying to make this arrow right here my 3D arrow. This is a Gold Tip, standard 300 spine, just a regular wrap and blazers, and this thing's forgiveness was garbage, even though it's fletched with the left helical. So forgiveness isn't necessarily left helical or right helical, but I was starting to notice, and particularly with a well-tuned setup, something that was appropriate with FOC, appropriate arrow weight, grains per pound of draw weight, which for me, I like to run about a 450 to 500 grain arrow for hunting, 60 pounds, 31-inch draw. And I find that shooting an arrow that is in that area, I can get the same accuracy with a right helical or a left helical, but I was getting better forgiveness with a left helical, and I was getting easier broadhead tuning when it came to a left helical. And the reason why I ended up shooting the left helical is because I was clocking the bow, and everything shoots left. 99% of string manufacturers clock left, basically due to the string manufacturing. I know there's a Paige Pierce video. I know there is. I don't know how she does it. I'm not Paige Pierce. Okay, I'm just telling you what I see anecdotally, that everybody that I see that shoots has a bowstring that if you look down the bow, you look right down from the bottom cam to the top cam, and you hold the bow in front of you. Here, we'll do it like this. If you hold a bow in front of you and you go from the bottom cam to the top cam, everybody I have seen, the string twist, like the top cam is your moving one, righty-tighty. So if you look at the twist of your string, imagine that the bottom cam is fixed on the string jig, and the right side, the top cam, or the right part of the string jig as the string was being built, is the one that's moving, and it's spinning righty-tighty, right? Because when you add twist, you shrink the overall length of the string, which is what a string builder is going to do. And I've seen this on 99% of the bows that I've ever worked on. String that I've ever worked on, these are Wicked Threads, but it's the same thing with Winner's Choice, 60X, Gas, everything I've seen twists them to the right. Now, I think like America's Best and maybe one other person to twist them the other direction, and that will give a right clock, which is what most arrows are being fletched in nowadays, is a right helical. But basically, all the arrows I've ever shot have always clocked to the left, and I've never cared. I've always fletched them to the right because it helps screw in the points, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. Okay, so let's actually get to like the answer here. The main reason why I started doing left helical on all my arrows is I was getting broadhead groups that were amazing no matter what I did. Right, so I'm going to fletch this arrow without an ounce of knock tuning. And I have a video hopefully coming up. It's part of my giant list here. It's called The Easiest Tuning Method of All Time. And basically what I've started to come to grips with and start to realize is that I haven't knock tuned an arrow since last August. I know that sounds crazy, but I haven't knock tuned to anything. And that's not because I'm lazy, it's because I'm just curious. I want to try it out. And what I've discovered is that using the appropriate amount of fletching, I haven't had to bare shaft knock tune anything. Now, I have had to knock tune once all the fletchings are on, but I've been able to get 12 arrows to shoot a fixed blade broadhead, a Magnus, a Stinger, or a Black Hornet. When I've gone in the past and shot arrows, I'll tell you that 1 out of the 6 or 2 or 3 out of the 12 just won't play nice, and that just becomes the field point arrow, right? We all have that arrow that's sitting in our quiver. But since I've started to fletch everything left helical, I don't have just the field point arrows anymore. And I've done this with this here. We have an Easton Axis arrow here. This is that's a right helical. Here's a Gold Tip 300. Here's a Victory VFTKO. This is the Victory V-Force here. So I've started shooting left helical because my broadhead forgiveness has just gotten better, and I have left helical clamps and right helical clamps. I can flip-flop back and forth. I want to make it very clear that my accuracy hasn't gotten better. I mean, it may be, but also I've been practicing too. My accuracy hasn't gotten better, my forgiveness has gotten better, and my broadhead tuning, which is what we're all really trying to accomplish as bow hunters, is getting all of the arrows that are in the batch, the 6 or the 12 or whatever that we have, to fly exactly the same. And as much fun as it is to sit down and knock tune and get everything flying perfectly and fletch it perfectly and so on and so forth, I got 2 kids running around the house. I have limited time as it is anyways, and I was just curious, could I get the accuracy that I've always wanted and always craved by just trying something different? And so I started fletching left helical, and everything fell into place. A little bit of knock tuning, again, video coming down the pipe, easiest tuning method of all time. Hopefully it can maybe save you a moment or two as well, because I know that's my biggest qualm with knock tuning or anything else, is that it just takes so daggum long. I usually like to write either on the bottom, or in this case here, the top of the jig, exactly what some of my more common fletching styles are. In this case, this is a left helical for hunting, blazer, top 3-degree angle, and the bottom a 1.5-degree angle. And that just gets the fletching clearance that I want on a standard diameter 244, 245, 246 arrow. Do the same thing to my clamp as well. I'll put a mark down there in Sharpie towards the base, so that way I always get the same amount of fletching clearance that I want for my face. And that's critically important, and particularly if you're like me and try to grow this scraggly facial hair. So the last thing I'll say on the fletching, left helical, right helical, do what you want. In terms of the accuracy, I haven't seen anything that has made me believe that one is more accurate than the other. I just haven't seen it. What I have seen, though, and I'll put a link in the description, is Garrett Prawl did a comprehensive review on Zinger fletchings, right? So these guys right here, which are nice 3D printed veins, really cool, really nice polymer. I actually got some of the new ones I'm playing with. That's also on the list. But anyway, one thing that was very interesting to me, because he has nice cameras that can, do slow motion, is that he was able to look at, and when he shot a right helical, even though his bow naturally clocks to the left, because like 90% of bows clock to the left based on the strings, blah, blah, page pierce, I get it. When that arrow was shot with a left helical, that zinger, a little tiny zinger, took over that broadhead, even a big one like the Iron Will Wides, took over it immediately, immediate steerage, and particularly with a great 4-fin one with a 6 degree, which is just a perfect amount of helical for hunting. That 6 vein or running 4 fletch, which I don't like to do, gives you a lot too much, and you really start to get a parachute where the whole back end will start to corkscrew on you. Don't want that. That shows just immediate rotation. Like, it comes out of the bow and it's like 4, 5, 6 feet away, and it's taken off to the left and gaining immediate stability. Then when he runs over to the right helical one, 3, 4, or 6 vein one, it just has this moment of pause. It's not long, and it looks really long because it's in slow motion, but it's just this moment of pause, and then it starts taking off to the right. It's not a knuckleball, like it's not doing weird things, but it's this moment of pause. And that's what I've seen when I'm paper tuning, is that if I shoot a right helical fletch, and of course we're shooting, the cock vein up. So you have the 1 top and 2 down the sides. I'll shoot it like 6 or 8 feet and it'll be perfectly still straight up and the 2 down at the sides. I shoot a left helical fletch and this top vein is cocked to the left, right? So for this way, for you guys, right? And then everything has started to rotate 6 or 8 feet. I'm getting a tear through paper with the cock vein no longer being directly up. It's already started rotating to the left. Whereas with my right helical stuff, it's usually right there. Like, it hasn't started to rotate to the right yet at 6 to 8 feet. I'm already getting rotation out of that left helical. Now, that doesn't improve my accuracy, right? Again, I'm going to keep reiterating this. It's not going to cure all. Start ripping off all your fletchings and fletching with the left helical isn't going to save your accuracy if your bow is not tuned and your form is garbage. You have to get those 2 things right. But it is going to help in terms of immediate steerage. So if you make a weird pressure on your grip, you got a weird face pressure, you're swinging out of a tree 20 feet in the air, and you have this weird moment, those fletchings are going to take over a little bit, and my misses aren't as drastic. So there are times where I think, gosh, that pin was way off, and when I was shooting right helical, it was definitely way off. With my left helical, it's still off, but it's less off. I know, it's anecdotal, I get it, but I'm going to keep running it because it is what it is. Now, as I get this FLETCH out here, you single bevel shooters, though, you're going to have to want to think about this. Left bevel, single bevels are becoming harder and harder to come by, and they're tough on arrows because when they hit and that torsion that they have, they'll really unscrew the broadhead from the shaft. You're going to lose a lot of angular momentum that way. Now, trad guys where the whole broadhead was glued on, epoxied onto the front of a wooden arrow, that wasn't nearly as big of a deal. But carbon arrows and the inserts and everything, it can be a little bit of a problem. So if you're a single bevel shooter, I would stick to right helical. Oh, that's weird. This whole thing glued onto itself. There we go. Tell you what, this FLETCH stuff from Serious in conjunction with Toughhead, holy cow! This stuff is some seriously tough glue. No pun intended, but it is a pun still. I love this stuff. I was a Gorilla Green Cap user, the gel, for a long time, and that stuff is excellent in terms of its adhesion properties, but you, A, don't get a whole lot in a bottle, and B, it got everywhere. I don't know what it is. I would think this stuff is literally water. Like, if you look inside this thing, it is literally water swishing around in there. It has a different smell. I mean, it still smells like a cyanoacrylate. It smells like a super glue, but it has a different tinge to it. But it definitely has a much stronger adhesion rate than, say, like your blue Loctite, right, or your regular super glue. This stuff definitely has a much higher efficacy, if you will. I don't do any weird vein prep, and I've never done weird vein prep. Regular carbon, these were wiped down. The shafts were wiped down because you get carbon dust and stuff on them from the factory. Just took a little bit of, you can use either denatured alcohol or like a 90% isopropyl alcohol, or an acetone's even best. As long as it doesn't have like the perfumes and oils and stuff in it. Try to use just regular like shop grade acetone you get at Lowe's, Home Depot, that type of stuff. And then I'll just blow off the base of the vein here. I already know I like to do a dry run with all my fletchings just to make sure that I'm getting a good contact with the vein across the entire base here. So I don't even run it up and down the base of the vein. I'll let gravity do the work here. So I'm going to hold this at an angle, and I'm just going to tip the glue. Sorry, I'm left-handed here. I'm going to tip the glue into the very, I'm probably about a 1/16 of an inch away from the very base of the vein. You don't want to go all the way to the end of the vein here, because it'll run off the back of the vein and into the clamp, and then you're going to glue your fletching to your clamp, and that's no fun when you go to take it off. So I go about a 1/16 from the end, and I'll tip it, and I'm just kind of like just dropping some glue on here, and I almost got a little bit too much, and this stuff literally is just rolling back and forth on the base of the vein right now like water. And I'm just going to do a quick smear, quick wipe so I don't get excess, and then I'm going to just push it on. Just a little bit of light pressure here, about 10 seconds. And then I'll just let that set up while I get this cap top cleaned off here. That vein is already adhered. I got a little bit onto the vein there. But the nicest thing is here, it sounds like a clamp. Like if you get a little bit of glue, you'll get it right here at the base where the vein went in, or at the tip, and you'll hear ding, ding. It'll just be that sound of a rubbery glue on a rubbery glue. That's metal on metal. And so here, we'll pop this out, just kind of give it a look. And we have excellent adhesion. I just have a touch of glue coming out on the tip and a touch of glue coming out here at the base. That's how I know I have really good air adhesion underneath. I have no air pockets. And that took 2 drops of glue. Literally like 2 eyedropper drops of glue that ran up and down the length of the vein. It was still almost too much. So something like this full bottle here is 2.2 fluid ounces. I forget the price from Sirius, but it will have to do at least 25, if not 30 dozen arrows in one bottle of glue. And I've yet to find a substrate it doesn't stick to. Aluminum, it seems to be working just fine with proper aluminum prep. The veins that I have on my gold tips here for those original 3D arrows, nothing has fallen off. Same thing's true of my VTAC 23s I have over here, except for one, and that's because I shot the arrow through the vein. Like the vein was still like stuck half on to the shaft, and the arrow had pierced through it. It had enough grip that a 23 diameter arrow blew through the center of a black blazer vein, and held the vein on halfway while the arrow was sticking through it. So that's pretty tough. Seriously tough. Eventually my kids are going to be upset with the whole dad pun thing. But for now, they're young enough, they don't know. Again, I'm just checking for vein placement as it plays. And you're going to screw up arrows. Like if you start fletching, regardless of what you're fletching with, you're going to muck up some arrows, and that's okay. Put like 2.5 drops of glue on there. And I would show you it on the camera, but it would run off the base of the vein and get everywhere. And all I'm doing here is just kind of like running it onto the vein and letting it just set up just a touch. Just a touch. So that way when I go to put it onto the shaft like that, it doesn't just run all off the base of the vein. I was like literally 2.5, just bloop, bloop, just eye drops. I'm not even squeezing, it's just coming out naturally. And there's nothing running off the back, there's nothing oozing up into the clamp. I mean, it's just, that's my kind of fletching glue. Like if I wanted a fletching glue, maybe just a little bit less runnier, I mean, just a fuzz, but not by much. I have a feeling this video should have been like 5 minutes long, and it's like 20 minutes long. Just the nature of the beast with Average Jack Archery stuff. I apologize, but the glue has about 10 to 45 seconds of like clamp time. I found it to be real fast. It's definitely closer to 10, 20. I don't think you're going to get 45 unless it's really humid. I'm in my basement here. It's not humid at all here in the wintertime. And you have a 1 hour to full cure. Some cyanoacrylates require like a 3 to 6 hour. I've left mine go for an hour. I'll leave them go overnight. I got no problems with doing that. Might as well. I normally end up fletching right now once the kids are in bed and leave them go till the next morning. So I haven't tested it for 1 hour. They're like rock solid. But usually I don't like to do that. Even if I'm doing my own arrows or the customer's arrows in the shop, I really like to give them as much time as I can to cure on the shelf before they take them home. So again, I'm just rocking this back and forth. I'm just gonna go, there's 1, there's 2, and that's it. That's all I need right there, and that's even still a little bit too much. Just kind of working that so it stays, gets a little bit set up, not a whole lot of setup, just a touch setup. And that's it right there. Using a glue like this, you don't have any of those silly activators, enhancers, vein wipes, acetone, pens, whatever. You don't have any of that stuff. It's using good old regular blazer vanes, a good serious clean arrow, acetone denatured alcohol, high content isopropyl alcohol, and this stuff. I'll bet you could fletch half a dozen arrows in probably 15-20 minutes, and probably the full dozen there in about 45, if not less, if you're really working. If you have like a whole bunch of jigs set up on a wheel or something, you could work in a shop, you could probably bang out a dozen arrows in, oh gosh, 10 minutes. I mean, you could really clip along if you really had to, you really needed to. And again, I had a little bit too much there. It came out and stuck on me. But the nice part is that it's just stuck right here. There's just a little bit of glue right here on the tail ends. There's not this big gloop of Gorilla Glue, because Gorilla Glue is basically cement when it dries, just like this stuff, but it oozes. It doesn't run out. It squirts up and oozes because it's a gel. Or same thing with a Loctite gel too, and also FLETCH Platinum. Well, the FLETCH, you had a longer working time, so you could clean it off a lot easier, and it plays well with acetone. Whereas these cyanoacrylites and stuff, if you don't clean that off, it's going to be nasty for a long time. All right, so we got a really nice looking left helical here. Nothing too intense. I don't like anything too intense when it comes to a helical. I just like enough just to get a good stability. This will be a hunting 3D crossover arrow. I like white for hunting, but it shows up really well on 3D targets, whereas silver, grays, and blacks and dark blues will disappear a lot easier. These are like a satin blue knock, which goes really well with the overall schema here of the elite result that I have up here, that nice beautiful elite blue. Tipping and tailing involves taking a more rubber-like cement. In this case, FLETCH Platinum still works. This stuff's a little bit old, but it still works. And you're just putting a little dab of glue right up in the crotch of the vane up at the front, and that's the tip, and then the tail as well on the back. Now, some people get all up in arms because they look at this. Maybe you can catch this on camera here. That's a big bubble of glue up on the front end with that FLETCH, and people will see that when it's fresh wet, and they'll panic a little bit. But you got to remember, there's a lot of moisture in that has to come out as that glue cures, and it will sink down. So that's how I know that I have a good bubble. Is on the front and a good amount of glue. I don't want to touch it with my finger. As soon as it's on there, it's kind of like doing silicone in a bathroom. The moment you start mucking with your finger, if you're not careful, when you go back to touch it a second time with silicone, it just looks awful. Here, as soon as that's on there, I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to let that cure, let that moisture seep out of it, and it'll look real nice and pretty. Right now, it looks a little bit odd, but when it cures and when it dries, and I'll show you here. So here it is right now. You might be able to see the tip and the tail, just a little bubble of glue, and it looks funky to the naked eye right here. But if you get an arrow that's already been done and is cured, for example, here is a Sirius Orion, you can see up at the front, you can't even tell that bubble of glue is there. It has lost all of its moisture and it has vacuum sealed itself onto the front and the back. This had the same bubble as that did, except I let this cure like you're supposed to. Overnight is best, and then it just vacuum seals that tip right down onto the shaft, and particularly with a good carbon arrow that's well prepped and is nice and clean, and it'll just hold that vane on there, and particularly through pass-throughs, whether it's a whitetail or a target. So anyway, that's all for this video. If you have any questions about the Supernova 2 as I start shooting them here and getting them ready for the 3D and hunting season, or the fletching glue, or the left or right helical, the hot melt, the 18 videos I have to fletch, why I chose silver blazer vanes, I don't care. Leave them in the comments section below for everybody to inquire about. Send me an email, send me a message on Facebook or Instagram. I don't care. Get into contact. I have been in a slump of getting content out for people and getting in touch with the archers that are out there currently shooting now. Been working on people's bows. I had a buddy bring in his boat anchor. Matthews. Whew, COVID. But anyway, I really hope that this was beneficial for you. And if you have any questions for me, I left gaping holes, or wondering about any of the products you saw today or anything else, please follow the links in the description below. Hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, send me an email, or drop a comment down here for everybody to possibly respond to and learn from. That is always super helpful as well. Hope you're able to get outside, enjoy the sport of archery hunting if you so choose. Definitely enjoy God's beautiful creation, and we'll get to see you next time.